What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, talking today about the worst games of 2020. Now this year has been very different, of course, mostly because we've had less games overall. Now just to be completely clear, I have managed to play over 100 games this year, just over the course of the last couple months. Of course, I've managed to find things from AAA releases to weird indie experiences, and over the course of 2020, I've noticed that there has been such a strangely wide range of very, very good experiences and completely broken freaking trash. In fact, one game I played this year, which is going to be in this video, has already been completely deleted off the internet. You can't actually even play it anymore because it sucked so bad the developers themselves just decided to liquidize the company, which is baffling. But let's talk about that. Let's actually try and dig up the biggest and hottest dumpster fires of 2020. These are my picks of the top 10 worst games of the year. Number 10. Marvel's Avengers. There's something so specifically depressing about whenever a game seems to have pretty much unlimited potential, but ends up sucking at release, which was definitely the case with Avengers. Now this game takes place in a Marvel universe. They had a chance to combine so many legendary heroes like Iron Man and, freaking Thor, and bringing together people with Captain America and fight all these giant people, and they decided to make the game incredibly boring. This is an online experience that's supposed to be multiplayer, and it just doesn't really manage to be fun because you're kind of just repeating missions, breaking into the same bases, fighting the same enemies. It's just one of those games that never manages to really suck you in and make you care about the characters. And that's the biggest flaw of all. What's kind of baffling to this is that now the developers over at Square Enix have had to admit the fact that this game has been a crazy abysmal failure. They have lost so much development cost, and even now 96% of the player base has already abandoned the experience. So it looks like this game is going to be dead before Spider-Man even manages to swing in and say, hey guys, what's up? This is a game that's depressing to me just because I thought it might at least be decent. Number 9. Remothered Broken Porcelain. There are certain ideas for games that just don't seem to work. Like, maybe on paper they have a good idea, but the basic concept of Remothered is a digital version of hide and seek. There's monsters that if they find you, they typically kill you in seconds. And let's be clear, certain games have managed to do this idea well. Just having hide and seek in a horror game, this works really good when it comes to things like Outlast or even things like Amnesia, but here it just doesn't work because the monsters are goofy. I mean, it's just not a scary game when I'm trying to creep around in this haunted hotel with evil spirits, but everything is just so hokey and honestly really, really glitchy. The amount of times I just was confused as to how to play the game is definitely a clear detriment to the experience itself. Remothered is just so freaking nasty. Don't pick it up even if you manage to find it for free. Number 8. Warcraft III Reforged. This game was a big surprise because it turned out to be the biggest controversy in gaming for all of 2020, mostly because pretty much everything the developers said was going to be in this project had actually been removed. So that means that this was practically sold on false advertising. When this was first being shown off, they talked about different styles of cutscene, maybe changing the story a little bit, that way this game would fit in perfectly with the World of Warcraft universe. There's so much stuff that they promised would make this game bigger and better, and that's why they were initially calling it Reforged instead of Remastered. And it turns out that all of this had been removed. When the game came out, it was a brutal, awful game that managed to be actually a downgrade of the experience that came out decades ago, which made fans incredibly angry and really grew this really hardcore distrust of Blizzard themselves. People realized that this is a company that would say anything to take even one more dollar out of your pocket. Number 7. Dawn of Fear. Okay, so this statement's going to be super obvious to my subscribers, but I am completely obsessed with horror, but specifically that old school style of horror. I like the games where you had to try and conserve your bullets and worry about solving puzzles and facing some truly gruesome enemies. Those are the experiences that in the 90s were my very favorite. Well, Dawn of Fear is trying to basically be a mix of the original Resident Evil and the original Silent Hill. It wanted to have like a psychotic and also also psychological mix of terror. The problem is that the game just sucks. Like, straight up, not to try and bully such a basic indie game, but it just does not work. Character models get stuck in the walls, enemies don't fight back, the puzzles themselves are not very well explained. It's one of those games that I feel like I respect them doing the attempt, but the final product is just bad. Like, it's just not fun or thrilling or exciting whatsoever. It's one of those games that I feel like as soon as I started playing it, I instantly regretted it. So while it may be worth watching a Let's Play or something, you probably shouldn't try it for yourself. Number 6. Battletoads. The Xbox One certainly had a little bit of trouble this year, just not having a bunch of giant releases. I mean, while there were some good games that were third-party and came to the Xbox One and Series X and managed to look bright and colorful, the exclusives were not amazing. But most specifically, I completely hated Battletoads. Mostly because it seems like it's trying to walk in the footsteps of a classic game that was just so fun and silly and honestly just so random. I didn't really care for Battletoads because it felt like it was just trying to drag itself out. 20-minute segments in a turbo tunnel, an hour spent in a spaceship section. Like, every part of this, even playing it co-op with my roommates, it just never really managed to grab me in a way that felt like it was going to be a good game. It's one of those times where, this is going to sound so mean, but if they decided to make a Battletoads 2, at this point, I definitely couldn't care about it because this Battletoads was absolutely awful. Number 5. Bleeding Edge. The one skill I have in life that I feel like I'm actually good at is I do have an exceptionally great memory. I can actually memorize entire RPGs for years at a time, or speed read a book and know all of it in the back of my brain forever and ever. But to be honest, I actually kind of forgot that Bleeding Edge even exists. Mostly because the game itself is just so bland. So the idea behind it is that this is kind of like a knockoff, a watered down version of Overwatch. I will say, just to try and actually be nice to it for a second before we completely rip it apart, I do like the fact that the character models are pretty cool, the music is fantastic, the graphics are at least decent, which sucks because the game is just so bland. You're trying to basically just do your simple objectives from taking over points to depositing nodes. I mean, the whole idea behind it is that it's supposed to be fun because you can play with others, but already the servers are practically dead. Even recording this footage was quite an arduous task because it just seems like so many people have already quit. Mostly because there's just not much to it. After playing about 2 hours, you have an idea of what this game is trying to do, but you just don't want to participate. Bleeding Edge overall is a pretty poorly designed experience, but more than that, it's certainly one of those games that's going to be forgotten before 2021 even begins. Number 4. Fast and Furious Crossroads. You know, in the past, there was always this trend of trying to create a video game version of everything, whether it be the Cat in the Hat movie or something like Aquaman or even freaking Burger King put out some video games. But Fast and the Furious Crossroads is baffling to me because it's kind of trying to be... Honestly, I don't know. Is this supposed to be a PlayStation 2 game that got delayed by a decade? Or is this supposed to be a cell phone game ported to consoles? Like, I am genuinely just so lost as to what this game is wanting to be. But the weirdest thing is that it just completely blows. Now, when you play this game, it's a series of missions, but every mission feels so out of place. Sometimes you're trying to tail a truck, occasionally you're trying to escape from the police, but the weirdness is that it's just kind of so random. It feels like somebody took a bunch of pieces of script notes from Fast and the Furious movies, cut them together with absolutely zero context, and sold it as a video game. There are cutscenes in this game that are just so weirdly constructed that they just seem like, honestly, it seems like they just literally ad-libbed every line. And of course the graphics suck. Like, we can't avoid the fact that everything is lit wrong. People just look weird. Main characters glow, even in scenes shot at night. Like, I'm just completely baffled. But the biggest thing is that, I mean, even the audio sucks. It's hard to really undersell how awful this game is. Like, when I was playing this, it sounds like every time Vin Diesel would say a line or Michelle Michelle Rodriguez, it sounds like they read their lines for the audio voiceover into a cell phone and it was one take. Like, everybody is just so lost and so confused, and even me, and all I did was play it. Number 3. Elder Scrolls Blades. In my honest opinion, some of the best games ever made is the Elder Scrolls series, but specifically Skyrim itself, mostly because this is just a game that manages to be so staggeringly expansive. You can put literally hundreds of hours into this game, going through it, becoming an assassin, killing kings, trying to become the usurper of the throne, or just the dragon slayer. Like, I love the fact that this game kind of opens up the doorways and says, make your own epic Lord of the Rings style journey. But Elder Scrolls Blades was a crappy cell phone game that they've decided to throw onto consoles. Now, my biggest gripe with this experience is just the fact that it is extremely limited. You do not have any sort of freedom. You basically teleport from one dungeon to another, do a couple times of swinging your sword, bash apart some people, and get some randomly generated loot. There is no sense of discovery. There is no sense of importance. This is very obviously a microtransaction filled freaking crap fest. And it makes me mad, because they could have done this right. They could have actually made a full-blown Elder Scrolls in all these different ways and made it good, but they decided to try and make it the biggest scam possible. So way to go, Bethesda. You decided to make this, even on consoles, a complete travesty. Number 2. Godfall. I think we can all agree that the PlayStation 5 has had a pretty solid launch. It seems like people are very happy with the games they got, from Bugsnax to Spider-Man Miles Morales, and of course the almost photorealistic Demon Souls that just seems to be breaking boundaries and brains all over the place. But Godfall has definitely been the exception, because it's just so strangely unfinished. Like, what I mean is that this is a game that is still visually spectacular. It's definitely a treat for the eyes to see these almost gorgeous shining vistas and stuff all around you, and this interesting mythology of gods fighting each other. But the problem is that it's just not really well balanced. In this game, we're playing as a warrior trying to defeat all these armies of people by himself, and while you're going through it, it almost has a Dark Souls style of combat, lots of dodges and parries and trying to make sure you're inside people's block and chopping them up. But it's just not cool. Like, when you're playing this game, it's very easy to just use a basic hit combo. Like, I completely beat the game, and it was very easy to finish all 5 of the bosses and the couple different missions that repeat over and over again by just pressing //dodge, //dodge for the entire game. Like, never once did I find myself having to experiment. I never found myself forced to evolve my tactics. It's a game that's practically a point-and-click adventure, because it is just so basic. It does have the option of customizing your gear a little bit, and of course you can do things like go into a talent tree to give yourself extra magic abilities, but none of them are necessary. Like, the game itself is just so laughably simple, and the AI is just so freaking plain that you can beat this game with zero effort, zero cares, and at the end you're gonna enjoy zero of it. Number 1. Crucible. Just to be clear, it feels a little bit weird to talk about this game, because I feel like so many people have already forgotten about it. Like, there's a chance that some of you don't even know that this game existed, but it did. So basically, I'm one of a very limited group of people who got to play this game before it came out. Amazon decided that they were going to make a big, giant game that's supposed to be like, I guess if I had to explain it, it was like sort of if somebody tried to make a high-budget, shiny, flashy mix of League of Legends and Fortnite. It is sort of a battle royale style game where you're going around with your teams and with your partners, and you're trying to defeat the enemies, capture points, and make sure you own the objectives for as long as possible. I mean, the concept was unique. I definitely think that combining such random pieces of game design into one project is something that I think should be admired, but the problem is that it had absolutely no balancing. In this game, there were different people like a person who has flamethrowers for hands, a little tiny robot that could grow like plants out of the ground or zap people's shields, or a giant guy with an axe. And the problem is that nobody fit together. Like, this seemed like somebody decided to steal a bunch of characters from actual games and glue them together. Like, do you remember that era in the internet where people were making like flash battle games where you'd actually have like Freddy Krueger beating up like, I don't know, Cardcaptor Sakura? Like, it was one of those games that felt like it was trying to just shove a bunch of different things together and see if it would randomly add up to something that was actually decent. And it wasn't. Now, when I released my review for this game, I told people, don't play it, it blows. Even if it's free, it's not worth your time. And people got really mad at me. But what's funny is that clearly the developers agreed with me, because after they released the game, they actually put it back into beta after having a full launch. And then a month after that, they canceled the game after it had been released. This survived about 45 days total. Like, I had never seen a game launch, have hundreds of millions of dollars getting poured into it, and still manage to fail this spectacularly. I'm actually glad I managed to film some footage of this game before its inevitable demise, because I hope that this is taught in colleges. I hope people realize that you do have to make your game decent, and you can't just build a fort out of money. You need to have some passion inside of your projects, or else it's going to end up like this, the very worst game of 2020, Crucible. Oh my gosh. Oh, hi there. Well, did your most hated game not make the list? Got an idea for a future top 10? Leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. Honestly, this video completely sucked to make, because what I had to do is go back and play a lot of these games again. So not only were these games bad, I had to do multiple playthroughs of experiences that were just so broken. Oh, just leave me a like. That's all I ask. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, you know, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.